Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. This podcast is a production of ElevateNonprofit.com, an online learning platform for fundraising event professionals. We're coming to you today from the studios of the AV department. Please welcome our hosts, Kristen Steele and Samantha Swaim.
Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. We have a special guest today that is a return guest. Dale Johannes was here with episode 12, and we did not have enough time to cover all the things.
Enough time.
We had so much more conversation to be had. And Dale, I don't know if you know this, but you're one of our most watched episodes. You are clearly a fan favorite. So we said, let's bring Dale back. Let's talk more. Things have been changing, evolving in the fundraising world. We're seeing in 2024 kind of a new growth in events. So we thought, what better time to have Dale back? So Dale, welcome back. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me back. What a privilege. And yes, there's so much to discuss.
It's true.
So much.
If someone hadn't watched episode 12 yet, let's do a formal introduction so everyone gets to know Dale.
Excellent.
And then we'll dive in.
And for those of you who watched episode 12, you will know that Dale's mainstay is the bow tie. And he is here today. Purple bow tie, Fundraising Elevator colors. I love the whole thing. Thank you for being here. Dale, if this is their first time meeting you, we want to set them up. You are an actor, fundraising host, and auctioneer. Dale has been helping nonprofits reach fundraising goals now for over 19 years and works with nonprofit organizations all around the country, raising big money for causes he loves. Dale, the last time you were here, which was in 2023 now, we were talking about how nonprofits can set their fundraising host or auctioneer up for success, what those partnerships for successful fundraising can look like.
Yeah.
But we wanted to have you back today to talk about what you're seeing in the world of fundraising events now in 2024. So Dale, what are you seeing? What does 2024 fundraising event landscape look like?
Isn't it interesting how things are cyclical? You know, things change so rapidly. So for my overarching message is less is more, right?
Love it.
And we talked about this a little bit at Elevate, how we need to shorten up the program and really get in and get to the reason you're there. Maybe less live auction items, maybe all the fundraising games, they're fun, but maybe fewer of those, and get to the meat of the program, which is the appeal, the storytelling. So I'm really seeing tighter programs, a lot tighter programs, less live auction packages, and making them a little bit more interesting. People don't want stuff anymore, right? I don't want to sell like quilts and things like that. People want experiences. So experience packages are doing very, very well. And people are wrapping their head around traveling internationally again. So throwing in a trip to Bali or a trip to Italy or something like that. But doing less and getting really to the reason you're there, and that's to support the organization.
This less is more trend has been something that we've been witnessing for a couple of years now, but there's a couple of things that I think it taps into. One, our attention spans. We're thinking about how do we prioritize and get what we need out of something. And I think that people, especially through COVID and just like the world and how it's changing and the volume of access we have to information, we've started to shift how we prioritize our time. So tighter programs so people have more time to connect, more time to be together. But that also, I think, is indicative, Dale, of a shift that we're seeing in giving by generation, generational giving, that I think Gen X was more interested in, well, especially boomers were more interested in the stuff. Gen X, I think, was more interested in the community. And what we're seeing in millennial giving is they're interested in impact. They want to give to see results. And so that appeal is what we're seeing take the majority of the focus and energy.
But also that idea of efficiency being respect.
Yeah.
That what is happening on your program stage, what you are forcing your attendees to go through when you start that program, that's actually donor stewardship.
Yes.
So when you are abusing their time, when you are not letting them make their personal mission impact in a room and asking them to do a bunch of other stuff that is of no interest, you are actually disrespecting donors on a fundamental level.
Yes.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. And I don't know, Sam, you touched on this a little bit. I don't know what happened during the pandemic that we all lost our attention span.
It's
but
true.
We did.
We
Right?
all started scrolling TikTok. That's what
We
happened.
did. So our attention span. So in response to that, though, that's why we have to tighten things up.
Yep.
And what happened early on was, we need to give everybody a dinner break. Once the dinner is served, we need to say, everybody, enjoy the conversation at your table. We'll be back in 20, 25 minutes when we're going to try to wrangle you again and get your attention. And then you know what happens usually after that dinner break is somebody from the organization is up there, maybe a board chair, maybe the executive director, and they're up there and they're speaking and people are talking right through it.
It's like watching a
And
train wreck.
it's really difficult, right? It's difficult. So I want to get your opinion on the controversial dinner break or not dinner break.
Not
Absolutely
dinner
not.
break.
Never, ever, ever. And especially the pandemic, but this was true before the pandemic. During the pandemic, we all hit the end of Netflix. Like at some point, there was
Right.
actually nothing else to watch. But before we did that, we're all fully capable of eating and watching. That's what
Yes.
Netflix, like, we can all multitask when it comes to shoving food in our head and watching a screen or a stage or that, you said it right. The dinner break, all of a sudden, then you have to re-wrangle. So if we think of that lovely arc we're building toward a peak, which is the special appeal, you just put a roller coaster at the front end of it. And you will never, ever recover that momentum. You lose it.
We're going down.
Yeah, I agree. And I always thought that people did that because they thought, we can't do a live auction while people are eating. And my message is absolutely we can. I'm used to doing that. Pass the asparagus, raise your paddle. Let's go. It doesn't have to be like silence in the room when you're doing a live auction. And the other trend that I'm seeing as we're getting into trends, by the way, is the way we have our dinner.
Oh, yes. I was going to ask you more about format questions. How are you seeing the format structure change at events?
Yeah. I didn't used to be a big fan of family style. I love it now. I love family style dinner. The service comes out quicker.
Yeah.
You're serving bowls. And I am a big fan of creating community. And I think that's what family style dinners do. They create community. And you guys both know that the things that are going to kind of derail your timeline are food service being too long.
Yeah.
Coming out, taking all those plates. A lot of people don't want to start their event until that last person is plated and then we go. Or somebody talking too long from the stage. You give them 5 minutes and they're still up there 20 minutes later.
Always.
So that
There's
happens.
always one.
But I love the family style dinner, and I'm seeing it more and more. Actually, I'm encouraging folks to lean into that because it does create community, and the patrons who are at the event, they enjoy it.
Yeah. It's also cheaper, and catering
there's
costs
that,
have gone
too.
up so much that doing, there's a couple limitations when you're doing a big plated meal. You have the need for a very large kitchen space to be able to plate 500 plates at a time. And you have to have a lot of people to be able to do that. People to do the plating in the back, and then servers to bring individual plates out to a room of 500 people. It takes a lot of time, it needs a lot of space, and it's very labor intensive. So you have a lot of people, high labor costs. As soon as you bring that family style meal service in, the meal service itself is big bowls per table where you have a salad bowl instead of 10 salad plates. You have a vegetable bowl instead of 10 vegetable plates. And it speeds up and expedites. You don't need as much room. You don't need as many people, so your labor costs drop. So it's a really effective way, I think, to sort of save on just the exorbitant increase we're seeing in catering.
But also think about the traffic on the floor.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
in terms of volumes of servers, you're providing all of those people. They're buzzing around the floor. If we're talking about sort of gnat-like attention spans and distraction and all those things that are happening. But I would also like to point out that I think, we've been actually lately in some conversations where service has been the focal point of the conversation. And somebody was talking about this really amazing experience they had when they sat all down at the table and then 10 servers came out.
Oh, yeah.
And served the whole table their plate at the same time. And I'm like,
That's
okay,
really expensive.
wow factor, but what's the point, right? Like if the point, what's the point? What are we focused on? What are we driving to? And I think that speaks to it in the same way that distraction about centerpieces or all those things. We all have restaurants we love and we spend a lot of money at to go have that experience, right? There's a place and a time for that. I'm not sold that your gala fundraiser is
Has
where
to
you
be
should be
that,
creating that sort of experience.
Yeah, when somebody leaves your event, is that the message you want them to leave with? Is, oh, all of our dinners were served at the same time.
But that is what they will talk about if that's what happens.
They may. Or do they want to leave like, I had no idea that they were serving that many homeless youth.
Yes,
that they were,
that's cool.
But that's what you want.
Yeah.
And to your point, Kristen, it creates so much more distraction when you have more servers on the floor. I'm very aware of it when I'm up there.
Oh, yeah. You're on stage watching the room, and the room gets to be this buzz of service happening. It's so nice when that service, it's like all tables served, they leave. And then to your point about dinner break or not dinner break, I know, just thinking about myself, like the quietest moment at a dinner table always is when people are taking those first few bites. It's noisy while the food is getting passed. It's noisy while folks are saying hi and greeting each other. But as soon as they start eating, that is the time, that is go time because it is quiet. They don't want to sit with food falling out of their mouth talking to each other. They want to be able to enjoy their meal. And that's our time to get up on stage, set the stage with our board of directors, our MC, our executive director, speaking about the work and the impact, and then roll right into that fundraising because we're on a ticking time clock. And when people finish that meal, they're thinking about going home. And we need to make sure that we've raised the money before we've done that.
Yeah, and people can multitask. I love that. Because they can eat and they got their, I mean, it's strange for me as an auctioneer as you're up there. They're not even looking at you. They're in their meal, but they're doing this, right? Yep. And because they're processing while they're enjoying that, beef stroganoff or whatever. They're raising that paddle. So don't stop because you think it's going to take away from the live auction because it's not.
It's a strategy too, Dale. Eye contact means you're going to come back to me. So if I don't make eye contact, I can kind of move on.
I know. I see you though. I've even at galas, I've been like, all right, you know what? I'm going to let you take a bite, take a sip of that wine. Now raise your paddle, go. And it's fun. Yeah.
It adds a fun layer to it. And there are other formatting changes that you and I have talked about, Dale. Are you seeing sort of the room changes? Are you more often up on the big stage? Are you in the middle of the room? What's working for you in the way of being back in the ballroom? What kind of crowd dynamics are you seeing at play?
I'm more and more and more in the middle of the room. And sometimes you have I do too. Yeah. Sometimes you have two stages where maybe your MC or your host is on the main stage. And I did one event where they had me on a little 3x3 little platform in the middle of the room. I thought I was going to fall off, but I enjoy that. I think the audience appreciates that more because you're connected to more people when you're in the middle of the room. Agreed. And that connection is super important.
And honestly, they see each other. They're able to look across the bidding at what's happening on the other side of the room. We strategically, one auction, knew that this particular organization had a mother-daughter pair that both very generously supported the organization, but got a little competitive with each other about who was giving, who was winning the package. So we sat their tables opposite the auctioneer with the auctioneer in the middle. So it was a back and forth game where they could see each other bidding, and it worked. It worked tremendously well. So I love when the auctioneer is in the middle.
That is so smart, by the way.
Right? I like it. Yeah, you set up
the competition. Brilliant.
I'm also wondering, I'm thinking about the sort of psychological aspect of when you give something to someone, the increased rate of return, that you being closer to the people that you're asking something of, like your bidders, and being in the middle of that. I'm wondering sort of, and this is just more hypothetical wondering, but that idea of perhaps increased participation or a longer, people staying with you longer in an auction because of your proximity. I think it gets really easy when that auctioneer is so many feet away from me on a big stage and I kind of tap out and then it's not even noticed, oh, I'm out. But if you and I are in relationship, you're standing really close to me, there's a peer pressure element, but there's also that visibility, being seen, one of the big reasons people give, that I'm just wondering, in bringing it down and sort of localizing it in that way, how that is also psychologically impacting donors and participation as well.
I think you're onto something there, and there's a reason why usually my style, I start on stage for the live auction,
Yeah.
and as we get into 2 or 3 or 4 people, going at it, I'm off that stage, and
Yeah.
I'm coming over and saying, "Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm your auctioneer. Remember me? All right, they're at 1750. I'm looking for you at 2000. Go." And when you come over to their table, first of all, the table smiles. They're like more engaged, right?
Totally.
This is a lot more fun now. He's standing right there and he's waiting for me to raise my paddle. Um, and so I think there is something to that. And the center stage helps with that. It also helps the organization put more folks closer to the stage that are big donors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or sponsors, like, if you've got somebody that's a big sponsor and you want them, you've got more real estate to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that helps.
There's an interesting dynamic at your event specifically, Dale, which is that when we work with you, because you can create a lot of momentum when you move through the room, you create this energy, you create this buzz, you start to have fun, people know you're coming to them, that if we add a camera to that engagement, if there is
So
a
good.
moving
It's so
camera
good.
following you, not only does it allow you to like direct to camera, have that personal connection to the rest of the room, because you can talk to the rest of the room or your online home audience by directly having that camera 2 feet from you. But then audience members, as you move through the room, are like, oh, here comes the camera. Here comes the camera. We have actually seen, and we have footage of events where as you move, you can see couples nudging each other to put their paddles up for the paddle raise because they know they're going to be on the screen.
Being seen, being
It's
a part
all-
of something.
it's all-
it is all
yeah.
working there. It's awesome.
I love a gimbal, right? A roving camera.
Yeah.
I embrace that because it is more fun. And I will be out in the audience talking to somebody and say, "Hey, look, say hi to everybody." And I'll have them look at the camera and say hi, which means the entire room now sees them.
Yeah, that is
great.
a giant motivator for giving.
That's great.
And it's fun for me to be able to try to engage the room here and then to turn over my shoulder, which is usually the camera's kind of right there.
Yeah.
To turn over my shoulder and then talk directly to the camera. And I know that means it's a little bit more intimate experience because now I'm talking to the room and I'm here in the camera talking to you. So especially for large events where you're trying to connect a little bit more, the gimbal's a great option.
Yep. I often talk about our purpose in an event is to close space. So whether it's the stories we tell, the timing of the program, dinner service, where people are seated, we are literally trying to eliminate gaps and close distances between people. And so you're both literally doing that, but also there's a whole figurative piece to what you're doing in terms of closing the distance and making it feel fun and approachable. Maybe, there are folks every day that show up to an event if there's a live auction component who have never participated in a live auction.
Yeah.
And so there is something to the spectacle of it. And even if they aren't donors, as that sort of spectacle and show continues, the level of engagement sort of continues to drop that barrier into entry a little bit for folks. And you're bringing them in, even though they may not be actively bidding, you're bringing them into the energy and the action, which is huge because we all know that in live auctions, it's a very, very, very small percent of your room that's actively participating.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody else is acting as a voyeur, is watching it
entertainment.
happen. So how do we create an experience for the rest of the room in that moment so that they don't just go, live auction, I'm out for 30 minutes, I'll be back, right? How do we make it so that everybody stays engaged? Because that arc has to be going up for everybody for us to reach that special appeal moment. So live auction, while you only have so many active donors, how do we make it that everybody can participate in some way in that?
Yeah, you want them to be engaged, even though they're not raising their paddle during the live auction. You want them to be engaged. Got a story for you. This just happened last weekend. In Palm Springs, doing an event for the zoo there. They have an amazing zoo. It's like just desert animals in their natural environment. Incredible place. The giraffe just had a baby. Little baby giraffes are beautiful, by the way. and little girl. And so they decided, hey, in the live auction, we're going to put the naming rights to the baby giraffe.
Oh, good.
So smart, so smart.
Yes.
And this is going to be fun. You get to name a giraffe. And so let's go. It started low. The audience really started being a part of this, really being engaged. And this is another thing that comes back to, don't worry about where you start your live auction. It's not about where you start, it's where you end.
Yes,
so many people
absolutely.
we need to start the bidding at 3,000. No, you don't. You need to get momentum.
Yes,
don't worry about where it
exactly.
starts. Worry about where it ends. So we started the bidding low, I think $5,000. We sold that for $100,000.
Yes. Oh my God, that's amazing.
And the entire audience erupted when we finally sold it. Now, it was two families kind of competing with each other. There was a lot of people at the lower levels, but then when it got real serious, it was going back and forth. And the audience, all of the audience, even though there were 2 people bidding on it, the entire audience was engaged. I actually have a clip of it. I'll send it to you.
Oh, good.
When I finally I said, put your hands together. This one is sold for 100. The whole audience just erupted.
And
then
you went immediately into the special appeal. Is that right?
You know what? The appeal was next because that was the last of our live auction. But quieting that room, right? You've got this energy, you've got this buzz, and then you get to,
you got to channel it.
We're going to get to the real reason we're here tonight. Now, that was a very respectful audience when I said, hey, I'm going to ask everyone to please quiet your conversations. I know that was very exciting, but we're going to get to the real reason we're here tonight. And it's not to name a baby giraffe. So we got the audience quiet and we went there. But the momentum in that room, the energy in the room, when we sold that for $100,000, and to your point, there were 2 people bidding on it, but there was 500 people in that room and they were engaged.
Yeah.
They were all a part of it.
Well, and at that point, when it gets to be $100,000, you want to know the story behind, who are you naming it after? What are you buying the naming rights for? What is the name going to be?
That
there
person is
becomes
a
whole
rock
story.
star in the after party.
Yeah, absolutely.
They will have a line.
So it was beautiful. I ended up finding out that it was a family who purchased it in honor of their mother, who just passed away. And their last name is McGrath, so it's going to be McGrath the giraffe.
Amazing. Yes. That's so good.
That becomes a story.
Yes.
That people leave that event with to tell what they did in this mission and what happened. And people
and it was a beautiful tribute too. What a beautiful way. Their mother was very much a part of the zoo there. Loved the space, loved the conservation efforts that they do. What a beautiful tribute to their mother. So that was
well, and
fantastic.
now look at this. People all around the globe are going to be able to hear this story and know about McGrath the giraffe.
I love it.
Well,
I also came off the stage though, and I said, we are naming every animal in this zoo now. Let's go with the turtle next. Let's go.
Yes.
Well, when we come back, I want to dive into more about live auctions because I think we've seen some shifts in the live auction space. But before we take a break, I just wanted to highlight 2 things that you just said in that story, which is one, the benefit of a professional benefit auctioneer. I know that we talk a lot about the importance of where you spend your money, being on really good quality sound and a really good professional fundraising host. And I say fundraising host because we've seen some events don't have auctions anymore. So someone who understands the room, the dynamics, the leverage, the momentum. And one of the things that you did in that environment, Dale, is that not only were you clear that there was a story and you were getting the story and communicating the story to the audience, but you also were then understanding how to use that moment where there's this giant oxytocin release. The whole crowd is in now. Now we're going to get them really focused and quickly move right into the appeal because we have oxytocin is that feel good hormone, right?
But it's got a stopwatch on it.
Right, but it starts to fade. And so that brilliance of letting the crowd eruption turn into momentum into the appeal and having someone on stage who can ask the audience, that was exciting, but now we have this really important moment. We're going to ask you to be quiet and shifting your tone to get the audience focused for that, let's make use of this momentum into the fundraising. I mean, that is what you are able to achieve when you have someone that's professional on your stage. I think so often we hear stories of well, our board chair is going to raise the funds, or we have a volunteer committee member that's
Your
going
Uncle
to.
Phil is awesome.
Right.
This is not about how not awesome your Uncle Phil is.
An awesome Uncle Phil who's like funny and loves being on stage should be your MC.
Absolutely.
And then you need a partner with them
Yes.
that does the fundraising.
Yes.
And so I want to make sure we highlighted that before we walked away from that awesome story, because you were able to do things in that moment that other people won't do on stage.
Absolutely.
And it turned into
Magic.
$100,000 magic
Magic.
for them. Well, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, live auctions. We're going to talk all about live
Let's do it.
auctions. So we'll be back with Dale Johannes.
At Elevate, we believe in bringing people together. Our online learning platform for fundraising events has webinars, workshops, downloadable tools, and more designed to save you time and stress when planning your next event. We're getting nonprofit, development, and event planning professionals the tools and ideas they need to create events that inspire donors and raise more money. So join us at elevatenonprofit.com. The link is also in our show notes.
All right, welcome back to the Fundraising Elevator. We're here with Dale Johannes. We're talking all about how things have changed, trends in fundraising events, what it's like to be up on that stage, and the evolution we're seeing in group dynamics and event design. And one of those things that has changed a lot, Dale, has been the auction. Yep. Now, I'm going to date myself here, Dale. I've been doing this work for a really
You're
long
among friends,
time.
Sam.
I
You're
know.
among friends.
There was a time where I was doing live auctions that we would develop a catalog that was 100 items deep.
So many pages.
And send that
many
catalog
pages.
in advance to people so they could shop. And then it would go on for 7 hours of auctioneering.
I think we should start at the top of this by saying, please understand if you are having a wine-specific auction.
Right.
We are not talking to you right now.
Right.
Yeah.
The catalog is...
Wine auctions are their own very specific...
It's true. Wine auctions and art
Context.
auctions are really around
That's-
a curated
yep.
audience that's buying a
Yep.
specific thing. It actually taps a little bit more into that like commercial auctioneering space
Yep.
where people are coming for a specific kind of experience and kind of package. But most of our charity auctions are getting donated packages.
Yep.
And we started to see a shift where 12 was kind of a sweet spot. That shift has happened again. Now, what do live auctions look like? Tell us like the ideal scenario. How many packages? What kind of packages? What's the world of live auctions?
I'm telling people no more than 8.
Oh,
yes.
is
Thank you,
kind
Dale.
of- I am shorter,
Yeah.
shorter and more robust.
Yeah.
So, to your point, don't make me sell art if it's not an art auction. 'Cause art is
Yes.
so subjective. It may look great on my wall. It might not look good at your, and you just shrunk your audience. Right
Yes.
Yep.
there. So art is not something unless it's an art auction. So that's not something.
Or
I
perhaps mission
embrace.
specific.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Schools and, participants making art that people buy, that is that's a different piece.
That is, and that's, schools do that often.
Yeah.
And I'll say, if your kid made this piece of art, it's worth $1 million.
It's true.
If it's somebody else's kids, I don't know if I'm going to bid on them, right? But I am seeing packages that embrace community. Paddle raisers. I'm a big fan of the paddle raiser, where 40 people get to go to this really cool dinner at the executive director's house and get to have a great night and have time with each other. I love those. Places that you can drive to. For us here in Oregon, maybe that's Sun River or Bend or the coast or something, along those lines. Or, again, and we talked about this earlier, international travel is back.
Yeah.
Folks want to travel.
Yeah.
So maybe that shouldn't be your whole, night, but maybe 1 or 2 packages that is, hey, you've thought about it. Let's do it. You're going to Spain. And so that's embraced. Also, wine still sells really well.
Yeah.
I love a board curated wine package. It's not a big ask to do. You ask all of your board members to go get 2 really good bottles. Like that's all you're asking, 2 really good bottles, and you're putting together a case of board curated wine. And usually that does pretty well as well.
Yeah, wine is always a really good seller. I think it's a very usable commodity. People know that.
There's a return on investment perception there that's very specific and concrete, I think.
And I think getting like a collection, like a trusty wine cellar or a board wine cellar is kind of fun because you get to like experience the personality of the board. What about, you said paddle raisers. I want to give folks kind of a context to that. So paddle raisers in a lot of auction platform softwares are called multi-sale items, where you have a number of spots you can fill. And what sort of interesting paddle raisers are you seeing right now? How does that like start to move into the world of mission and alignment with mission? What are you selling most often?
Usually they're dinners or some sort of experience. You're going to go do tequila tasting at somebody's house on their patio, but it's going to include the executive director, or it's going to include someone from the organization who's going to give you an update on what's new with the organization, where we've been, where we want to go, things like that. Dinners are maybe you're going to the board chair's house and they're going to prepare a really interesting Spanish meal for you or something like that. But you're going to have a time with other folks who also support this organization in the same room and having a great dinner. Those do very, very well.
So what I'm hearing is one of the better performing live auction items is you actually selling to many people to come be stewarded as donors.
Come to another event. Come be stewarded as a donor. Meet our leadership team.
Yep.
That's amazing. I love it.
Maybe there'll be a celebrity there or somebody from a
Sure,
winery there who's talking about the wine, and you're all going to be, there's a sommelier there, and they're going to be talking about this wine, something special, a little bit of
It's a
hook,
great experience.
right?
Yeah. I just mean,
it's a great experience.
As an organization, you should be super hyped about putting that one together because you're going to be able to continue the relationship with people in a structured way.
They sell really, really, really well. I just did one in Bend where the executive director is there with a winemaker. It's sold out. Just sold out.
Well, and it's something that every organization can do, right? You find something unique within your community, a chef, a winemaker, a home that's a unique home, a garden space that's a unique garden. But if your mission also has something unique to offer as an experience, you said that you were doing the Living Desert Museum down in Palm Desert. That zoo experience, there was a zoo that we were working with in Fort Wayne, Indiana, the Children's Zoo. We love them. And they have a platform for their giraffes, going back to the giraffes. They have a platform for their giraffes that is kind of a big, large platform at the giraffe's head height that allows you to get up close and personal and feed the giraffes. That's like a standard sort of experience you can get at the zoo. Well, one of their auction packages one year was an opportunity to buy dinner with the giraffe, where they actually turned that platform into a dinner setting, and 20 people were able to sit there and have dinner, and the giraffes could come over and pick off your plate and have dinner with you. And it was such a magical experience. We have another organization that is a school, and their kindergarten classrooms are called the Bumblebee classrooms. They have themes based on their grades. And so all the Bumblebee teachers would put together the Bumblebee party. And we sold this party one year. I didn't believe it at first. People told me, this is the reason why people come to our event. I didn't believe it at first. They sold this party for something like $25,000 total, doing a paddle raiser where everyone could buy in, and they had so many people interested in buying in. But here was how they did this. 5 kindergarten teachers would get together. One of them was responsible for hosting at the school library an overnight with the kindergartners.
Oh.
Or your student, whoever your student was, whatever age they were, you were going to get it overnight at the library with movie and popcorn and games and activities. And then the other 4 teachers would divide and conquer in a rager. They were hosting a parent party that was come let loose and get wild. And it had been known year after year that they would put themes together. There would be costumes together.
I'm very clearly seeing why this raised $25,000. Dale, you in?
I'm in. Let's go. I got childcare, and I'm going to be able to go into a rager. Let's go.
They would theme it with a cocktail theme and a food theme, and it was and they'd have a DJ and a dance party and costumes, and it was a rager party for the parents. Come tie one on and let loose. And then it was like care and fun that the kids also wanted to be a part of. And so year after year, the parents heard about the Bumblebee Party, what's going to be the Bumblebee Party this year. And every year they'd say, we have the opportunity for 40 parents, and they would get hundreds of bid paddles up. So the way that we would sell it is we would start with everyone at $100, and there'd be too many. So we're going to $250, and there would be too many. Or we're going to $500, and there'd be too many. I couldn't believe what people were willing to spend to have a party with the kindergarten teachers. It was awesome.
Well, and to be able to hang out with each other, also, other parents at the school. This is why organizations, I think, need to get a little creative. I did a school auction recently, and the teachers at the school all came together and put together a band. And I guess they go to
fun.
Love it.
They play at different venues. Well, this was a paddle raiser where you were going to go and have a night with the band, which was a good band. They actually played that night. And it's, again, we're going to start at $1,000. Oh, keep your paddles up if you want to go to $2,500. Now $5,000, until the auctioneer kind of sees, okay, that's roughly 30 paddles, and then you sell it. And it's when you think about these kind of packages, these paddle raisers that are also engaging, where you're going to be able to talk a little bit more about mission, it really doesn't cost the organization anything.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, especially if someone's willing to be the host and kind of put together the hosting experience. The other benefit of that model that I've seen is that sometimes you will have 20 slots for the event, right? It's going to be a wine tasting party with the executive director, and there's 20 slots. We have often seen a single donor interested in all 20 slots, and have had the ability to sell to a single donor the entire party, ask the executive director right there in the moment if they're willing to host another one, and then sell it again to 20 guests. So that ability to do something that we often call a blind double, where the audience doesn't know in advance that there are the ability to sell multiple packages. In that particular scenario, we probably didn't know either. We found out in the moment. But if you do know that you have a package that you can sell multiple times, every auction comes down to 2 paddles going back and forth. You might start with 50 paddles in the air, but eventually you get to those 2 bidders fighting for it. That if you're able to sort of get to that drop-off point that someone's ready to drop out, and then announce to both of them that they can both take it for that price, you just doubled your revenue. So that ability to do a blind double, I think, is always a nice addition in an event as well.
Yeah, keeping in mind, though, you don't want to do too many, because then it gets to be, wait, he's going to double this again.
Right.
And it's people, they did a little moan when you say, hey, we can sell 2 of these. And so you have to pick and choose. Going back to your giraffe, because that seems to be the theme of this podcast today, is giraffe. That is brilliant. That they crafted a dinner with the giraffes, where the giraffes can come in with those long tongues that wrap around and just take part of your food. I want to be a part of that. Whoever came up with that, that's brilliant. I love that.
The experience. It's all about the experience. We work with another zoo that also does an iced theme. All dinner service is an iced theme experience with the polar bears in the polar bear exhibit. So they're safely, in a separate, but you're near them, you're watching them, they're watching you, and you're in this ice cave environment, and everything that they're serving has blue and sparkle, and it's a very creative meal designed around, how do we create an experience around the polar bear exhibit. So those experiences, I think, are so unique.
Well, and I think I want to sort of broaden this a little bit, because not everybody has giraffes. Right. And I think often we talk to organizations where they're like, yeah, we don't have unique experiences within our mission. And I want to say, yes, you do. Your mission is a unique experience.
Yes.
And I think people forget, when I show up to work every day, I take for granted where I work, who I work with, what that experience is, who our clients are, what that looks like. That bringing donors into the heart of your mission. We talked about this with Tammy Zonker with story tours, but I think this applies when you start to think about packages around your mission. It's about what's unique. What do people not get to experience, and what tells them a story about your work? And so I just want to sort of say, I know people are listening going, cool, don't have a zoo, don't have giraffes or polar bears. What do you want me to do? But I think, Dale, your example of creating an experience with leadership in your organization to really talk about the heart of your mission, but giving it people an experience around that is sort of the other end of that.
Yeah.
And in between, there's a ton of opportunities for people to come and volunteer and be in your space and see your work firsthand and what that can look like.
Which brings us back to people don't want stuff really anymore.
Yeah.
They want experiences.
Yep.
They want experiences that maybe that other people don't have.
Yep.
Yeah.
Priceless stuff. You can't really we're going to put a price on it that
Sure.
night, but it is truly priceless. It's an experience you can't purchase.
Yeah.
Yep.
You have to know somebody and you're going to get the inside scoop on stuff. And every organization, I don't think they value the work they do enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's a room full of people that are saying, yes, I love the work you're doing. I want to be a part of this. And if you give them an opportunity to do a little bit more, they'll take it.
Yeah.
They showed up for you. Let's bring them in. So I want to talk a little bit about how sort of mission can show up in the other big money moment, which is the special appeal. So a few weeks ago, we had Beth McGorry on, and she was talking about a runaround package in her special appeal. And basically at the end of the appeal, her special appeal speaker had baked a cake. And they sold that cake for $2,700.
Yes. So good.
As part of the paddle race, right?
Yeah.
So thinking about that, but also thinking about mission and benefit, how do those leverage points and how can that show up in the special appeal itself?
I think in general, folks are usually stuck on, okay, we're going to start at 10, then we're going to move to 5, then we're going to go to 2,500. And I want people to start thinking outside of the box. And I'll give you a perfect example. I did an event here in Portland where we had a level that was like $117. And I love a special level that people go, well, that's not a usual
Specific.
level. 117. But I said, let me tell you what $117 is going to do.
Yeah.
$117 is the rate we negotiated to put together backpacks for youth who are living on the streets during the winter. In this backpack, you're going to have a warm blanket, hat, socks, thermal things that you can put on so you can, brave the elements during the winter. That's what $117 will do. Raise your paddle right now for $117 so you can take care of one youth who's living on the streets. And on the other hand, tell me how many, backpacks you want.
Mm-hmm.
And that was during the appeal in a room of 500 people, 100% participation.
Love it.
Because they knew that $117 was specifically earmarked to do something that they wanted to be a part of. I want to sponsor a kid who's living on the streets. I want to take care of them during the winter months. $117, I'm in. Even if I already raised my paddle up 5,000 or 500, who's going to deny that? So find a level that directly correlates to your mission, something that you do. I've even done, I think it was $314 was the amount it costs to give music lessons to one child for 6 months at this school. All right, let's go. This is our next level of giving. It's $314. This is what $314 is going to do. So thinking outside of the box and drawing it right back into your mission.
Yeah.
So you've opened a can of worms that I want to pour out on the table.
I was gonna,
because there's two elements there that every organization has to think about when doing something like that. One is that it is hard in the nonprofit world to get unrestricted funding. So we always recommend that your appeal is about funding your mission, because unrestricted funding is the unsexy money, but it keeps the lights on and the doors open.
Power bill paid.
Yes, exactly. So in, grant world, we can apply for a grant that funds our mission and funds our program. But when we are looking for those unrestricted funds that are keeping the lights on, they're hard to come by. And the appeal is your opportunity to just fund the mission. It gives you resource that you can use how you most need. As soon as you introduce a package like this, you are now restricting your funding. Yep. And in the nonprofit sector, it is required by law that when you restrict the funding, it goes toward that funding. So the key element there is that when you are doing a paddle raise with a dollar amount attached to a thing, you need to make sure that that is a thing that your organization really needs, wants, and is legitimately going to spend its money on. I've had organizations say, we're going to, $1,000 is a full scholarship, so we're just going to ask for $1,000. I'm like, but are you spending this money on scholarships? If you are, that's amazing. If you are not, and you need the flexibility of it, then we can't restrict that funding. So you want to make sure that it's an item that you're going to spend. But the other way that you can do this is you can, as you're starting to bring folks together, coalesce folks together around a particular level, especially a unique level. Like it's our 40th anniversary, so we're going to have a $40 giving level and ask everyone to participate. That's not going toward an anniversary. It's just using a benchmark.
It's a leverage point.
So I think sometimes the story around the level or that mission thing that you can buy can be really compelling. And you mentioned that in that particular scenario, you had a full room participation. I think that that is sort of a key opportunity with a mission-centered thing like this. We've done it with books, with scholarships, with program-specific things. Like you're going to sponsor like a musician. You're going to sponsor a chair in our orchestra. That I think it can be a way to sort of bring people who with capacity who've already given back.
Yep.
They already raised their paddle at a top level, and now you can engage them at a lower level, and to bring new people that haven't given yet into the fold. So I love the idea of tying your mission and a mission element, not at every level, not with every item, but a mission element into your appeal.
And I like it at the lower levels so you can be inclusive to everyone because not everybody has the ability to raise a paddle for $5,000. But if you make it at a lower level and it's inclusive to your entire audience, you're drawing them in. And how good does that feel to know that my $117 is going to take care of a youth who's on the streets this winter? That feels good. And again, back to your point, yes, you have to earmark that money. I'm not a big fan of like, we want to get a mobile van tonight. Who wants to raise their paddle for $25,000? I don't want to fund a mobile van. I'm here to fund your mission and the work you're doing, not a mobile van. But I do also love and embrace an opportunity to give, to honor 40 years. Maybe there's somebody that was on the board for 35 years. Let's honor him tonight with 35 years. We're going to go, $350 level or something like that. And the $1,000 scholarship, you got to be very careful like with that, because you have to say $1,000 could fund, as long as you frame it like that, you're okay. But I love the lower levels, finding something that is specific to your mission that is going to resonate with your audience.
Well, and I think what that can do is I'm a firm believer in the don't restrict your funding.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting, though, about starting to build a frame, whether you're building toward unrestricted funding and framing it more open, or like you're saying, Dale, at lower levels, sort of making one mission-specific, very tactical moment of impact, what you're doing is taking a nebulous concept of a donor sitting there giving you money for mission. Right. And mission is emotionally compelling, and we're talking about programs and we're talking about impact and all those things. And it lets it drive down to this very granular level. And I would hazard, and I'll go out on a limb for anybody that wants to engage in this conversation, I would actually hazard that there are some different neurological aspects happening there once you start giving people a tactical moment of impact. Same as an auction. Same like what are those things where I can sort of ascribe that to a specific thing? And so I think that can become a place where people can really make a ton of impact. But I think it's really great to have that happen at a level, to your earlier point, Dale. Not every level. And I think during virtual fundraising, this happened a lot when we were walking through different levels of giving and sort of having some more filler scripted moments while we were waiting for text to give donations to start to come in. And we were talking about that. It became where every level was trying to ascribe to what that level could possibly make happen. And it's like, no. Let's talk about the mission more generally. Let's talk about your impact more generally. There's no reason to tie every level to that thing you do that's worth that much money. Yeah,
you mentioned Beth McGorry. Beth McGorry, when we interviewed her, she's a fundraiser, and she said, that importance of one ask. The appeal is one ask. Every level is an opportunity to participate, but it's not a new story. It's not a new cause. It's not a new, it's one ask.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
But when you have an interesting level,
Yeah,
like you have
absolutely.
a level of $417, there's an opportunity to tell a story.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Why $417?
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you why. And it's an opportunity. And I know you're not fans of telling stories at all, but
I hate it. I've never done it in my life.
Never. It's a great opportunity to dive in and tell people why $417 and what that means.
Well, you mentioned it feeling good. So I want to talk a little bit about that because also you mentioned, Krista mentioned there's probably a neuroscience here happening. There's a big philosophy around abundance generating more abundance. And there is a lot of philosophy in the financial advising world and recommendation about giving away some of your revenue, some of your income as a way to create sort of that sense of generosity, that sense of feel good, that sense of taking care of others because it comes back to you. And I think that in an environment like an auction, with a battle raise, that you are really giving people the opportunity to feel good. And oftentimes organizations say, they have a committee member or a board member that's gone to an event with a bad experience. And they say, oh my God, we can't do that. We can't do the paddle raise. We can't make the audience sit through 15 minutes of fundraising. But that's because—
At a fundraiser nonetheless.
Right, at a fundraiser nonetheless. But I think that that's because they had an experience where the ask wasn't done well. It probably wasn't done with a professional who understood energy and momentum. They probably didn't come in with pre-commit gifts. So they ended up opening the giving and having crickets, which is just death, right? You can hear the room just gasp. And then they probably did it at the end of their night when people were tired. And so much of a good fundraising moment is putting some thought into the storytelling, the pre-committed gifts, who is on the stage executing, building momentum, building energy, and when in your program that's happening in order to create that sense of feel good. And when it's done well, we've had folks come to us and say, this is the best event I've ever been to. And I'm like, we did nothing special at this event. The food was fine. The theme was absent. The event was just a call to action that felt really good. And people will leave there buzzing. Mm-hmm. And I think that you and I have talked a little bit about rooms have become full again, that we're seeing giving happening in rooms again. I just wanted to ask you what is the group dynamic you're witnessing? How is generosity coming back as you are working, in events in New York at the same time that you're doing events in Palm Springs and in Portland? I think you have an interesting seat at the table because you see the dynamics at play. What are rooms looking like? What's that generosity? What's the group dynamic at play when you're what does it feel like to be up there?
Yeah, you captured so much right there. And that event that you talked about, people left with a great feeling. You touched them, right? That's what you want to do. And that appeal moment, that story you're telling, that's the most important part of the night. So get it right. And that's my thing when I work with an organization, is that moment, I want to get it right. What's the handoff look like? What story are we telling? And at what point are we saying, and now it's your turn to show your support? And across the board, across the country so far, feeling really good about people coming back into a room. Rooms are full. They're at capacity. In fact, this one I did in Palm Springs just last weekend, there was a waiting list of 150 people.
Oh, wow.
That's insane.
Couldn't get them into the room. And that's been across the board. So friends are coming back into the room. They're embracing. They're saying, I missed this event for 2 years and I want to be a part of it again.
Yep.
That's a good feeling. Also, the giving is really, really up. We have blown out goals in all the events that I've done so far this year.
Amazing.
Which feels really good. And there's a couple of reasons, I think, for that. One, economy's kind of chugging along. It looks like maybe we avoided a recession. Stock market's up. People are feeling really good.
Yep.
All the stuff that happened in the past with the multiple wars that were happening, that weighed on people. There's a lot of chaos in the world. And now, those wars are still going on, but we're starting to deal with it. We're starting to process it. We're starting to think that maybe this might, have an end in sight. And people's generosity and attitude, it's back. So events in New York, events in Palm Springs, events in San Francisco, events in Portland have all been great so far this year. And that's why I'm just kind of crossing my fingers that we can continue that.
Well, and I think too, there's sort of the bigger context that people are operating in, whether it's political or financial, but I also think that drive toward community is why events are often so critical for people to do. I know that they're often the first on the axe block for organizations when they look at time and return. And we are the first people to tell you events are not the easiest ways to raise money. And if you are actually not raising money at your event, that 400 hours you spent on it, go talk to donors. Don't do it. But I think that that harnessing of power in community is something that, because we had to have a pause button on it for so long, people come back to it and understand it in a different way. And whether they can voice it or not, I feel like there's something visceral happening in rooms of people gathered, especially when you gather them emotionally around a mission.
Yes.
That is an opportunity for organizations to really, really do something special.
Yeah, I think it's a nice moment we're seeing right now in that even amongst ongoing war, even amongst political unrest, that people are able to find community together. And that community, I think, is driving more generosity because
and agency
of connection.
Yeah, and agency, too.
Yeah, and I think it came back to you, Sam. You talked about it feels good.
Yeah.
Right? We're looking for a reason to connect with people. We're looking for a reason to feel good, to do good in the world. Maybe all that chaos is driving you to say, what can I do? How can I help? That's a great way to help.
Yep.
It's true. Well, we have one last break, and then when we come back, we're going to ask you to join us again in the fundraising elevator. So we'll take just a short pause, and then we'll be back to talk about sort of what's up in the penthouse and what's down in the basement.
Love it.
The Fundraising Elevator is recorded at the AV department in Portland, Oregon. For years, they've been our trusted partner, delivering exceptional audio-visual production and videography for nonprofits. In 2020, they transformed into a dynamic live streaming studio, producing more than 900 virtual and hybrid events. Now, we embark on an exciting journey together to bring you this podcast. Seeking the best in live events, video production, and live streaming? We proudly recommend our friends at the AV department. Link in the episode description.
Well, welcome back to the Fundraising Elevator. We're here with Dale Johannes talking about trends, things we're seeing, auctions, appeals, and we're going to ask you to join us in the Fundraising Elevator. We're going to ask that we all head up together to the penthouse where the party is and ask you to share what was an event that has had sort of a lasting, memorable impact for you. What made it memorable?
Oh, the question. The events that I remember the most are always the ones that touch you.
Yeah.
Right there. I did an event, was actually in 2023, that had a moment, an emotional moment where I had to center myself because I kind of lost it a little bit. And the weird thing was, it was in the middle of the appeal. It wasn't at the story, because a lot of times, when you're setting up that story and you're talking about sick kids or kids living in the dumps in developing countries or things like that, it's hard to pull it together. There's been moments where it comes to me and I got tears coming down, and I look at the audience and they're in the same space. They got tears coming down, and you just got to take a second and pull yourself together. But this was in the middle of the appeal, and it was at a specific level, and we were talking about kids who had terminal diseases. And one of the kids we were talking about was at the event, and he was standing on his chair with his number over his head with a gigantic smile. And I wouldn't even have known about it because it was a very, very large room. But for that event, in large rooms, I like to wear an in-ear so that people can talk to me. And I heard somebody say, "Stop what you're doing and turn around." And I turned around, and there he was with his number on top of his chair, standing on top of his chair. He's like, I don't know, 8, 9 years old, standing on top of his chair with his number up. And I made the room stop. and he happened to be our appeal story. And I had the whole entire room look over there, and we lost it. I mean, I'm talking about it, I'm losing it right now. But that was a moment I'll never forget. And it was
Yes.
spontaneous and in the moment, and it brought us right back to why we are there.
Yeah.
That's the reason we're there right now, right there. And he's standing on his chair, and he's got his number over his head, and he's got a biggest smile on his face that you could even imagine. That is why the entire room was there that night. And it was a moment I'll never forget.
And that's why events.
Yeah.
That's the opportunity.
Yeah.
Regardless of what that looks like for folks at their event,
Well,
but
it's
that's
bringing
the
it,
kind of
closing the gap.
magic. That's the kind of magic alchemy that can happen when we are literally living in front of each other, Dale. So you on stage having that reaction gives me in the audience having that reaction, both community and permission, in a very different way. And we go together on this ride in a very different way. And that doesn't happen the same way as an appeal letter or all of these other avenues of fundraising. That's why there are multiple quivers in the case, right? But that can be why events.
Community and permission. I'm using that. It's because that's what it is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the quivers in the case.
I'm
Sounds
sure
like,
it's called something official with quivers. Let me know. Write in. Let me know. I'm glad
it
to
sounds
know.
like the tools in the toolbox. So let's
there you
head
go.
down to the basement. And Dale, what is a tool that you think every fundraiser should have in their toolbox?
Well, there's a couple. I've got so many that, like, you tell me, and like a million things are going through my head, but I'm going to touch on one right now. Please invest in a good sound system if you're going to do a live event.
Yeah.
Please, because if you can't hear folks telling the stories, if you can't hear folks talking about the mission, you tune out. You tune out. So I'm a big fan of invest in really good sound. And the other tool that I will ask is when you're showing your videos of your mission or the work you're doing or your appeal, please closed caption them.
Yes.
I want it to be accessible to everyone. And you don't know. There may be people in the room who are hearing impaired. There may be people in the room that English is their second language. Please go ahead and just closed caption them.
Here's an interesting fact about that. More than 80% of caption users are not hearing impaired, but it's a comprehension tool. It increases comprehension. So not only do you have...
I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
So that gives you another argument, Dale, when you're in there arguing for captioning.
Yeah, and if captions are on the screen, people will read them along with hearing it to increase retention. And that means they leave your event talking more about your storytelling.
Yep.
And
it's such a simple thing to do in this day and age with technology the way it is.
Yes.
Closed caption them. It's not that big of an effort. You're not asking that much. And then also, if your sound system goes sideways, which has happened, you still know what's going on in the video.
Yes. But please hear us here.
Good sound system anyway.
Good sound system anyway. One is not a replacement for the other.
No.
Dale, you are an amazing partner for us on the Elevate Learning Platform and the Elevate Conference. We look forward to you being a part of next year's Elevate, March 12th and 13th, 2020.
Oh, yes, please. Yes,
2025.
I loved the conference.
But in between now and then, people need to talk to you. People need to hire you. People need to have you come raise them money. How do they get a hold of you?
Oh, I love it. Well, dc-auctions.com is the website, or you can just email me. It's my name, Dale Johannes at Gmail. Couldn't get any easier. Full name, no dots, no numbers, no Dale Johannes at gmail.com.
Well, when you engage Dale, you get the expertise of someone who's on that stage doing it 3 or 4 times a week. You get that consulting. So we want to make sure folks know how to get a hold of you. Links will be in the show notes. And we hear you have some new video content of your workout. So we'll put that in the show notes as well so folks can actually see you at work, not just in conversation with us. So Dale,
I love it.
Thank you for joining us on the Fundraising Elevator. We appreciate you and we look forward to more conversations ahead.
Always a pleasure. Love you.
Happy fundraising.
Back at you.
The Fundraising Elevator is produced in partnership with Swaim Strategies at the studios of the AV Department. The program is produced by April Clark and directed by Steve Osborne, with audio engineering and original music by Dwayne Anderson and Heidi Christensen. Video production by Chris Peterson, Whitney Gomes, and Nathan Bouquet. Video editing by Steve Osborne. Graphic design by Pendulum Creative Group, and support from Sophia Keller, John Lyles, and Andy Dowsett. Loving the Fundraising Elevator, but wondering how you can talk to Sam and Kristen? Well, now's your chance to do it. Book one-on-one consulting time with Swaim Strategies experts Sam, Kristen, and Mary, and get all your event questions answered. Our team has you covered on strategic planning, fundraising strategy, storytelling, data tools, and registration support. Get the tools and the help you need to make the most impact at your fundraising event. Book at elevatenonprofit.com. The link is also in our show notes.